Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women, celebrating 10 years. I'm also the 6-time best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company InspiredLivingPublishing.com, which is dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, and health practitioners a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows as a published author. All of my brands, including this show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. So welcome to Inspired Conversations. You know, I believe we all desire to live a more awakened, joyful life, right? A life that's filled with peacefulness, patience, and self-compassion. I know I've discovered on my own journey that life puts trials and tribulations on our path to help us discover our inner strength, clear the old stories, heal our wounded hearts and our bodies, and own our worth. And joining me today is intuitive Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com, and we're going to be talking about that and so much more. Cindy is the Goddess Creatrix for InHerFullness.com, which is dedicated to empowering and teaching spiritual women around the world how to create an abundant life they love by stepping into their own unique fullness lifestyle. Through her Awakened Living Alchemy program, Cindy helps women remove blockages and strategize and optimize each key area of their lives. As you'll discover, it's Cindy's life passion and soul work to help women experience a luscious, rhythmic life, one overflowing with love, joy, vibrant health, personal success, using sacred ritual, feminine mystery, spiritual connection, and many other powerful tools. Welcome, beautiful. I'm so excited to be sharing space with you once again.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to always talk to you. I am so glad to be here.
Well, I always love our time together, and for those who haven't met Cindy yet, Cindy has been with the Inspired Living Publishing family for a while now, and we got to share some space in a recent video series last year, and I really got to know Cindy on such a deeper level, so I am so excited to have you on the show because you're one of those women in my life who I just respect and admire for the journey of what you've gone through and what you've created from that. Because as I said in the intro, we all get hit with trials and tribulations, and you've had your share of them. And I've been there too, and sometimes our trials and tribulations can weigh us down, right? We can take them on as an excuse not to live a full, luscious life. But then I meet someone like you, and I'm like, oh, she's an example of someone that turns lemons into lemonade. So let's start with your journey, and let's talk about your greatest trial and tribulation that has taught you so much about yourself.
I would love to because it is important. And I'm just going to throw this out there because it is a passion. And I do know that in today's society that 1 out of every 3 women are walking around with some kind of illness, and it's usually a chronic illness. So that's really where my journey started. And I was in corporate America retail. I was climbing that ladder. I was working and loved my job. And after doing that for about 5 or 6 years in that capacity, one day I was driving down the road and I literally just my body. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel any part of my body. And I knew that something had been wrong for a while. So I pulled over and just hoped, that I could regain all of my senses back so I could get to my next destination and then get home. And luckily the next day, I call this divine intervention. I felt like I needed a rheumatologist. So I went through the rheumatologist section, and I just put my hand on the page, and my index finger was on a specific rheumatologist. And I called the number, and 30 seconds before I called, someone canceled for the following day. And I took that slot. So within a week or two, I was diagnosed with lupus, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic pain syndrome. I mean, just all of these little layers of chronic illness. And I shut down. I didn't know who I was. I honestly was told I would be pulled from work, and it ended. I never went back to work because I got more sick. And as I was laying in bed, that's all I wanted to do, Linda. I mean, it was like, I just didn't care, and the pain was so horrific. And I kept going through more and more drama with this illness. But, I know that there's such a great, higher power than me, for sure. I've always believed that. And I know that to be true because as a child, I know I had to be protected by angels nonstop because I was a rough little girl. And, I just felt it was like a washing that came over me. It was I would say it was about 8 months later, and it was in January, and it was snowing outside, and I remembered how much I loved to play in the snow, and at that moment, it was like the Holy Spirit just absolutely washed over me and said, it's time for you to get your butt up and not only be holy, but be whole. And that moment, things changed in my life. And my path, my direction, so many things absolutely turned my life around. And for that, I look at myself and sometimes when I go back to that place and I understand, where I am now in my life, especially with my passion helping other women, I would not know the work that I'm doing in the depths and have the intuition and the divine spiritual leadership that is really the foundation had I not gone through what I've gone through.
I'm a big believer, Cindy, like you, that our trials and tribulations are there to polish us so that we can live our life purpose. And like you just shared, if you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't be as on this path that you're on now, one, but two, you wouldn't be as strong as an intuitive, a healer, a spiritual leader if you hadn't had those experiences. And I don't know if this is your truth, but it was my truth when I got diagnosed many years ago with similar issues, which I no longer hold true. And for me, it was, oh my God, I began identifying with the labels. And that's when I started spiraling downward. I became the labels, right? I accepted it.
Oh, yeah.
And I can really resonate with your story because I think I was 40 years old and had a mini stroke, so it's like 14 years ago. And they told me I had MS. They thought I had lupus, which is in my family. I didn't. But I remember the feeling of going, oh, my God. And it was when I started going inward and releasing the labels and the connection to them that things started to shift for me. Has that been your truth, too, that you don't embrace the labels of the illness anymore as much as you did at that point when you were lying in bed every day?
In some ways, yes. And think more for me, it was the fact that I lost my identity.
Yeah.
Because I had always been such a high achiever in any place, any career that I had. You know, I didn't stay on the bottom for long. I rose to the top and loved the chase of that. And I lost, for me, it was more of losing my identity. I didn't even know who I was then. And you would think mother would come to mind, wife, because I was at the time, but none of that came to mind because I had put so much into a career. And eventually that came. And definitely, yes, I did identify with, okay, what does this mean for me now? I can't do A, B, or C. But that doesn't any longer hold true in my life. And that's where I get really excited. And because of the walk, you know, the different strategic things that came into my life that now I can look at a woman who's in tears because they think their life will never be different. And I'm just like, let me tell you. Let me tell you how I got there, and let me tell you what I used, and let's do this together. And I can promise them a transformation because it is so powerful and true. And you know, that's kind of how I take myself, even on a daily basis. Whatever might be nagging at me, I always am like, okay, this is going on. What's this from? What is this telling me? How can I use this? And sometimes it may be that I need to get out and go visit some friends, or I may need to hold down and I'm working too hard, or it could be that I need to go do something wild and crazy. And that is part of who I am. And I have learned by going back to, you know, even my childhood and how I behaved as a child. I have that wild woman syndrome, so to speak. And luckily I live in a place, I'm going to share this with your listeners because I think it's fun, and I think it, you know, they'll kind of get something from this. But I live in a place that's completely wooded. So there's no houses, they can't see. And actually yesterday I took a bath outside, took a shower outside, you know, completely naked with nature. And I wasn't feeling that great when I got up, and I said, I just need to be in nature. And just by doing that, it was so healing.
You know, it was like you were connected
to
your inner child, honoring yourself, and connecting with nature, which is a powerful way you and I know to heal. And I want to talk more about that when we come back from our break. And I'll be back in a moment with Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, and joining me today is Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com. And right before the break, we were talking about how Cindy has learned to honor her inner child, honor the calling of her body, to rest when she needs it. And I think for so many women, Cindy, and I'm raising my hand here, that's a big issue, learning to listen to your body, because at the beginning of our conversation, when you were first telling us about your diagnoses, you mentioned, I knew something was going on in my body for a while, before that episode in the car. But you were so driven that you were disconnected from your body and not listening until you got hit with what I call the cosmic 2x4. Have you found that with a lot of the women in your clients and your community, that so many women are pushing, striving, which is the masculine energy, and have become disconnected?
Absolutely. It's a very common, I would say it's a very common denominator, as well as that feeling that women have that they've never been taught. I wasn't taught it, but that they take care of everything else first, and then if there's time left, which they don't even think about really, then they take care of themselves. And yes, that is the common denominator.
And I know it's been a life lesson for me, especially in my 40s and 50s, is to learn to be, not just to do, and I don't know, our paths are similar in a lot of ways, because you said in your corporate career you were really striving and pushing and was always used to being the best at what you did. And I feel like I had that same energy when I was building my other business back in 92 that I had for 11 years. I was so busy doing and pushing and looking for outside validation of my worth by being like the best and being active in the community that my body was screaming, my soul was screaming, but I never slowed down freaking long enough to listen. And now I laugh that all my brands are dedicated to reminding women to live from the inside out. So I like to say the divine has a sense of humor to use our journeys as wisdom and lessons for others.
Amen to that. I absolutely, that's so right. And, our journeys, it's like sometimes I take sacred pauses every day. It's a practice that I've started probably like a year ago. And just really, I'm not really in a meditative state, but I'm taking a sacred pause, just whatever comes into my mind, and then sitting with that. And one of the things that has recently happened was the fact that I was thinking about how my path started with my illness. And even though there's not a cure for these chronic illnesses, I have so much knowledge and intuition and experience in knowing so much of what goes on in the body now through research and through other people that have been put in my path. And I thought, you know what? I am doing a disservice if I don't share that. If I know another woman sitting across from me and she is going through something similar, I'm doing a disservice if I don't give her that tool that she needs. And that just really spiritually connected with me and the way that I do work with my clients and really digging down deep. Because what happens, I think, within this whole framework of how beautiful you put everything, I didn't notice things. When I was working and being badass, I didn't notice that flowers smell beautiful. I didn't notice all the different things in life that were so luscious and, so sensuous. And that's part of my healing for others right now, is really teaching them sensuous behaviors, which is using your senses. And I totally missed out on that for most of my adult life. And so now, I really am careful with my body. I take care of myself. And recently, this is an example of something that I've just recently did. My granddaughter just turned 1 year old.
Oh.
And I'm a grandma, yay.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I was worried about taking a trip because I would be driving 4 hours. So at first I was going to take a train or the plane or whatever. But I said, you know what, I can do this. And I did it. And I felt so empowered because I took that step. But on my journey to get there, she lives in D.C. and I'm here in the mountains of Virginia. On my journey to get there, things were starting to really come out. It was spring, and the beauty that I saw just driving was so precious. And then I got to witness and really sit back and watch my daughter as a mother. And I found myself just in awe of how amazing she was as a mom and taking care of this little one. And, I really think about what her life was like when I became ill. And, younger years of going through some life difficulties. And I realized, you know what? You beat yourself up too much. You were a pretty darn good mother for her to turn out like this. So I think it's those moments of really recognizing and also taking the time to see what you have done in your life and owning up to the good things and not the mistakes all the time.
And that's such a powerful message. And you and I were talking off air about this because off air, Cindy was talking about that moment with her daughter going, I did a pretty amazing job. And I said to her, Cindy, I don't know about you, but I was a single welfare mom. And for many years, I was like, oh, man, did I mess up my daughter? And, I had so much self-judgment up until I released all that about 10, 12 years ago, when all of a sudden I said, you know what, I did the best I could, and my heart was always in the right place, which to me is a major thing, right? And then, like you, she's now a mother, and my granddaughter is 4.5. And Nikki, as a person, is the most loving, nurturing person anyway. But to watch her put those skills with the little one, I call the little goddess, I had that same realization as you, like, wow, I've spent years beating myself up that I wasn't the perfect mother, whatever the hell that is, excuse my language, because I don't believe it exists. I think it's a falsehood that's put out there so that women can feel bad about themselves. And like you, I had that same awakening, like, wow, I did an amazing job with this child who is now loving and nourishing and nurturing her child. And all the past regrets were gone for me in that moment. Was that your experience? Like now you had that moment of a clarity visiting with them. Are all the regrets gone of decisions made as a mom?
Yes, it did. It really, it brings tears to my eyes because I think that there's not a higher calling than being a mother and having, that gift of life in your hands. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure how my daughter would do. And she's young. she's getting ready to turn 27, and she never expected to be a mama. As a matter of fact, they told her, her doctor told her that she would never be able to conceive. And she had so many problems with that, even in high school. So what happens, she gets pregnant. And I'm like, she calls me, she's upset, she's in tears. I was able to hold that space for her because I know what it feels like, to have your heart fall.
Yes.
And because of all those experiences and the ickiness and stuff I had gone through. And I just was like, oh, my gosh, this is wonderful, Brittany. I was like, yay. I'm going to be a grandma. I said, there's a miracle here. This is a miracle.
That baby was meant to be here for her growth, for the infant's growth.
Yes.
And it's also a sign that, some can be told that they may not have children, but it's not the truth. And it's so funny. I didn't realize we had this parallel, but Nikki, my daughter, was told the same thing. She was a little older than your daughter, but she was told, because she has autoimmune disease, that she may have trouble conceiving. And her greatest goal, some kids wanted to be dancers when they were little, or firemen, or nurses.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter from 5 years old said, I want to be a mother. So when she discovered she had been in a long-term relationship, that she was pregnant, one, it was beautiful. We all celebrated because we're like, this is a gift from God. You were told that this may not happen. It doesn't matter if the timing doesn't match your life, right? They were looking for a house at that time, planning their wedding. And I said, It doesn't matter if the timing doesn't fit your human plans. What matters is she's coming. And it was the greatest blessing because I knew it was in divine's hands.
Yes.
And you know how I am. I'm always posting about the little goddess. And so I love that you were able to help Brittany see that, too, because we go into the human mind, right? We go into the ego mind like, this was not in my plan. Well, sometimes the divine has a plan that's so much more beautiful than we can ever imagine for ourselves. And it sounds like she sees that now, too.
Yeah, she does. And she needed, and she got married 3 weeks before the baby came. And I will have to say that her husband is amazing.
Aww.
She needed him, too.
Yeah.
Is the other piece of, because Brittany wasn't really grounded that well when she was even starting to date this guy. They dated about 2 months, and she got pregnant. And then she, I said, come home this coming weekend, and I'll be mama. I said, it's going to be great. And she was like shocked at the way I accepted it, and then at the promise that I would be there to support her in any way, no matter what her decisions were, not mine but hers.
Yeah.
But what happened is she and her husband really became one. As they, you hear people talk about that kind of relationship, and to witness that too, it just, what a blessing. I could not ask for better.
It's heart opening.
Yeah.
And I want to talk more about that and some other topics that I'm dying to dive into when we come back from our commercial break. And everybody, we will be back with Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Beautiful one, if you're living your life by default and feeling disempowered, disconnected, and disenchanted, it's time to tap into your goddess power and use that divine energy to create the magical life of your dreams. As part of the Goddess Lifestyle Alchemy program, Creatrix Lisa Marie Rosati guides you through the 12 aspects of your life while tapping into the archetypes, the 4 elements, the divine, and practical magic. By connecting to the divine and working with universal laws, your life suddenly shifts from going through the motions and struggles to seeing divine love and purpose in all aspects of your life. If you're ready to design your magical life, visit Lisa at GoddessLifestylePlan.com for an abundance of supportive resources.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Hey America, we need to have a little talk. We've got more food than we know what to do with in this country, yet 17 million kids in America are struggling with hunger. Makes no sense. Luckily, the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks has volunteers gathering excess food and getting it to hungry kids. They're kind of like food angels. Hey, become a food angel yourself by supporting Feeding America in your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. This is your host, Linda Joy, and I am in the midst of a beautiful conversation with Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com. And just before the break, we were talking about sometimes life brings us surprises. Sometimes unexpected surprises. But when we can shift our way of looking at things to find the blessings in every circumstance instead of labeling them as wrong or untimely, that's when things I think open up for each of us. And as we were both sharing, our daughters became moms after being told, and again, I never knew that our paths were that similar, after being told that most likely they would struggle with infertility. And we were both blessed with amazing grandchildren. And like you, I looked at it as a blessing. I didn't care what the world or ego or anything thought. I said, oh, this child is meant to come. She chose these parents, and what a blessing. And that's how we've treated the whole event. And watching her, as you and I have been discussing, when you can watch your daughter become a mother and watch her nurture, it's like this cycle of life, I want to say has been completed within inside you. Like as a woman, it's like, that's how it feels for me, like to be able to witness that has been one of my greatest gifts.
Yes, for me too. Yeah, it trumps everything, I think, in life. Because I think that, I mentioned this before. And even if you don't have children or haven't been able to have children, you have birthed life into something.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. I'm glad you said that. I don't want to leave
anybody out because that's so important to me as well. Brittany isn't my only child. She might be my only human child, but I have birthed life into so many other things. So, yeah, it's just, it is magical. It's a miracle. And I just find myself feeling so much gratitude, and especially flowing into grace with how I even speak with Brittany now and how I am around her. I'm grandma, and, I ask for permission. I respect her role. And
that's so important.
Yeah, I'm like, can I have your permission to mommy you for a minute about something I just saw, And she's usually like, yeah, sure. And so being a grandma is the best thing in the world, but it also takes that relationship and like the level. You're friends and you really kind of co-create and help each other through life then. And Brittany's done that for me in even my illness. She's when I was visiting her, my back was hurting really bad one night, and she took care of me for those hours. And while she was doing something, I took care of Mila. And I mean, so our relationship has changed in a completely different direction too.
There's a depth. Yeah, it's a depth of respect, love, because now she gets to feel what it feels like to be a mother and why maybe you made some of the choices you made. And that's what I see. And there was something you said earlier in the conversation on your drive to D.C. when you said you can tell things have shifted for you because you noticed things on that ride, the blooms and the flowers and the views and the scenery that you missed out on all those years ago when you were, pushing, striving. That's what I want women to walk away with, is that message right there, that when we become fully alive in our own lives, that's living in fullness, right? That's going, I'm fully present in my life. Because a lot of us, we can get in the car, do a 4-hour drive, and not see a thing. I've been there. It's like we're in our head, we're just not present. And I loved hearing that you were that present. That's a big shift from the beginning of our conversation of where you were many years ago to how you live your life today. And I wanted women that are listening to hear that, because the transformation you've gone through, inner and outer, as well as myself and many of the guests on this show, is possible for anyone, right? When you dive deep and do the inner work, it's possible to live in a live and full life.
Absolutely. And that really is the magical word. When you do the work, it wasn't easy. It's not easy some days.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And some people that think it's all roses and butterflies, they go, oh, I'm going to do the law of attraction, and it's going to be roses and butterflies and things are going to transform. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Believe me, I tried to do the roses and butterflies and the law of attraction. But it wasn't until I did the freaking hard, deep work and went through all the shadows, all the pain, and did the law of attraction and many other principles, that I had forward movement in my life. But we can't do it without taking the inspired action steps of doing the actual work. There's no way around that.
No, and they are different for everyone. I don't expect everyone to feel free and go out in their backyard and take a bath naked. You probably have neighbors. But there's other ways that are inside of you. You have it. It's inside of you. It's a matter of doing the work, getting in the darkness, being willing to look at what it really truly is, embracing it, digging in that dirt, getting those hands dirty, and saying yes to what you find that's underneath that's pleasurable, that brings you joy, that is really illuminated, to promote not just healing but inner wholeness and well-being. And it's our response to our needs and our desires and even our questions that come up, when we have any kind of life difficulty. And what do we do with it? And when personally in a practice I teach my clients, and then I do when I have those questions that come up, the first thing I do is I start digging in the dirt. I have a little shovel thing, and I start digging in the dirt. And usually, I'll get a plant or something to plant, but there's something that takes place when, the smell of the earth, the smell of the darkness, that you realize that you can put something in its place once you can recognize what it is. And it's something you can enjoy, and it's of beauty. And then you get to cultivate it. And I think that is a way to really be able to look at the dark times and to go through them. It's a journey. And I know that today's not my last day on this journey. I know, hopefully I'll wake up tomorrow morning, but I know every day is going to be a different day, and I know that I will have to create in some way what is right for me in each day with intention, and that's how I start my day out, and that really grounds me. No matter what gets thrown at me, I'm ready for it. And that's another big lesson with not just chronic illness, but any kind of difficulty you're going through, that being really grounded and rooted in your and practicing your own inward wholeness and your own version of what you want to be, to stay rooted. Things can come at you and you can deflect them, or you can look at them in a different way. You can look at them with compassion. So there's so much to this. I could talk about things for hours, but I think that that's an important part of it too, is to really treat yourself with compassion and your reactions to things with compassion.
And that is a powerful. It's powerful because you get to choose every moment, every second, how you want to show up in your life, right? And so say one moment comes and you don't show up at your highest and best version of yourself. You have the decision in the next moment to change that. And that's one of the greatest lessons I learned, is we always have the power of choice of how we show up, right? We either show up with love or we show up with fear. And I wanted to talk more about that when we come back from our break. Joining me is, again, Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com, and we'll be back in a moment.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Do you love, accept, and respect the woman you see in the mirror? You are a goddess. But do you treat yourself as one in every area of your life? Are you taking care of you? Or are you last on your to-do list, if you're on it at all? It's time to take off the Superwoman cape and awaken your inner goddess. Psychologist and body love expert Mary Pritchard is passionately dedicated to empowering today's women to heal their relationships with food, their body, and themselves, along with reconnecting with their inner goddess, stepping through perceived fears, and embracing the truth of who they are. Visit drmarypritchard.com to learn more about Dr. Mary's Body Love Group program, private coaching, sacred goddess circles, and to schedule a complimentary chat. drmarypritchard.com.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. This is your host, Linda Joy, and joining me is Cindy Hively of InHerFullness.com, and we were just talking about that moment to moment we have the choice of how to show up in our lives, and that was a big thing for me, Cindy. I don't know if it was for you, where, whoa, No more excuses, Linda. Once you discover the universal secret that you have the choice, and every choice leads to the next result, you learn really quick, well, I better start making better choices, whether it's the way I think, the way I eat, the way I feel, right? And
absolutely.
And my past 20s and 30s, when I was in my 20s and 30s, something would happen, and I had the mindset where let's focus on this thing that happened, whatever it was, right? Whether it's an illness, a relationship issue. And I would focus solely on that. And what happens when you focus on something that's negative, you attract more negative, right? You can't come from a place of consciousness when you're in that energy. And I started to shift and incorporate gratitude in my life and find things to be joyful about even in the dark times. And that's when I started to switch. And what you were just sharing is, you may have used different words, but you're choosing every moment of how you want to show up, moment by moment. And has that been a big tool for you to use with yourself and your clients, that moment by moment choice?
It has. Extremely important, because, things happen. Like, once they happen, they happen. And an example would be, maybe we didn't talk to somebody in the right way, but we had good intentions. There's still the next moment, like you said, to say, you know what, I realized that I'm not going to beat myself up for this, but I realized that I probably could have said that in a different tone. I was just agitated. And you have that next moment to make it right, to call and, say, hey, this is what happened. And I think another example in my life for me is being vulnerable for the first time in my entire freaking life. This has been about only 3 years ago. Everyone that has ever known me or knew me or even now knows me, they're like, how do you do what you do? And it was 3 years ago that I took off my mask and started speaking my truth and started being vulnerable to my needs. And when that happened, it was like the floodgates opened. I went through a week, literally a week, of just nothing but flowing tears, because I had held so much inside of me all my life. I'm talking splitting up from the marriage. What do I do? The next morning I'm at work. Oh, I have to keep going on from this situation, from that situation. Everyone thinks that, I can handle anything. And I didn't want to be that person anymore, because it wasn't true. And even my parents, I called them and I was just sobbing. And my mom was like, are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? This is not you at all. I said, yes, this is me. This is me being me for the first time. So, really removing, and that's what's been freeing in my life as well. And I so honor that. I show up, even with my clients, I show up in my authentic truth. We hear that a lot, but you can see it. Like, my body even shows, my neck will get red or my cheeks will flush, and my passion is completely different since I've done that. Because being vulnerable and also showing up in your truth, how you really feel, and letting others in, heals you first. And then you can be a catalyst to heal others. And it's probably been, it's been a huge life lesson, because my dad was in the military. He was, in the Marine Corps, and I was for 28 years, and I learned how to be a tough, rough girl. And I thought if he saw me crying or something, that he would think that I wasn't as tough and as I should be. So I had a conversation with him recently and really was vulnerable and, just kind of shared. And I was still Daddy's little girl. He still hugged me and loved me, and he was like, I'm always here. As long as I'm here on earth, I'm always here for you. So, it's just so important for you to remove the masks, to really let your feelings that are inside come up, who you are, and not try to hide them and feel like you have to be a version of something completely different, even if you've been living that way for most of your life.
Oh, you touched on a powerful chord for me, because I've referred to it in the past and written articles about it, called Superwoman Syndrome. And I was caught up in that too, where so many, because of the role I played as Superwoman, I never let anyone in. I thought I showed them that I could handle everything, even when the truth was that I couldn't. And it sounds like that was what you were describing. And it wasn't until I frickin' took off the Superwoman cape and hung it in the closet after my mini stroke that I realized, oh my God, I did this to myself. I had been so busy hiding behind masks that of course people thought that's who I was. I was the one projecting that out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, when I started showing up authentically and from my heart space, as you do, that's when life shifted for me. And I believe women like you, and that's why your clients are attracted to you, they see your truth now because the masks are gone. That's how we can serve, is when we connect with our potential clients or friends or community heart to heart. No masks, no bullshit. Just show up authentically like you did with your father. And I just love hearing that, because it tells everyone listening to this show that it's possible for them too, to take off the mask, take off the cape, and start living based on the truth of who you are, not what you believe others want you to be.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think in that truth, I was more, people looked at me as more of this constantly vivacious and fun-loving, and everything is great, and that's was my personality. It really still is. But when I'm having a day that really sucks, I will say, look, I'm having a day that really sucks. And my language has even changed because I've always been this really good girl and, this really nice girl. And, sometimes I say words that come out of my mouth, and my mom or my dad or whoever, my friends are like, what did you just say? And I'm like, yep, that's what came up. So that's what,
That's how I'm going to express myself.
I've suppressed this too long, and this is really who I am. And it's such a great way to, just to be able to know that you can be that way. And like I said, this happened like 3 years ago when I really couldn't handle anything anymore on my own, and basically it was so forced. And since that time, there's so much freedom in my everyday life, and how I talk to my husband, how I react with other people, and show up for other people as well, especially those that intuition that need me in a certain way. I can go into those different roles or those different slots and pull out what's going to really speak to someone else, because not everybody has the same message or the same need.
Exactly.
We're all
different. I think that's such a powerful way to show up in the world, and also powerful insights that your journey has brought you that our listeners can, learn from and start maybe incorporating some of the wisdom you shared in today's conversation in their own lives. And I want to thank you, Cindy, for being here, for showing up with a wide open heart, and letting us be a part of your journey, be a part of your truth so that we can learn from it. So thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Linda. It was my privilege and joy, absolutely, to be here with you.
And I want to thank everyone.
Listeners.
Well, thank you, Cindy. And I want to thank everyone for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for more sacred conversations with visionary women who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. For even more inspiration, claim your free subscription to Aspire magazine, which includes over 40 transformational gifts. You can do that at subscribe2aspire.com. Until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.